Hi, and welcome back to RPMbassy with myself, John, and Mark. We are now on number 4, so we're coming down to our last kind of couple. And putting this list together has been really, really difficult. But this one, my number 4, really deserves it. If anything, it should be higher. But so should be thankful it is where it is. Now, this record came out in 1981, October 1981. And the reason why I know that is because my parents bought me this on tape for Christmas. So I would have been about 11 years old. I didn't know much about this band, but as soon as I put this on, it was crazy. It was just like, what is this new sound? Because I obviously come and listen to a lot of punk and all this kind of stuff, and then this is the first, I would say probably true, completely electronic, real kind of space agey, kind of frightening really listening to it because it's so different, and it is the Human League Dare album. This has now become an iconic album, the Human League Dare. Again, if anyone says they don't like anything of this album, I will never talk to them again because this album is just insane. So Human League had split up, so half the band had gone and become Heaven 17, leaving Phil Oakey, and then he obviously got the 2 female singers in, and a couple of new producers in to do this album. So it's a complete different shift in sound because they were kind of avant-garde, kind of electronica. We listened to the first couple of albums, Reproduction and Travelogue, very kind of avant-garde, very kind of St. Martin's kind of band, whereas this was like a different direction. So they went to the studio with Martin Russian, who I love a lot of his stuff, but he produced this album, and some of the studio equipment on here, which I've got to read out because it's insane. The Casio M10, Casio VL1, Korg 770, Korg Delta, Lin LM1. I mean, that list of equipment is just insane. Some of this I have. A friend of mine's got the System 700, so it's really nice to know what created this album. There was a couple of singles. They released The Sound of the Crowd first, which did okay. Then they released this album. Then they released 2 singles, Love Action and Open Your Heart, which did really well, and they also had videos with it. But it was the last single that they really did not want out. They argued with the label to the point where they were going to leave the label if they released a single. But anyway, they gave in, and there's a reason why. If you look at the track title, it's the track Don't You Want Me. It's the last track on side B because it was just like, as far as they're concerned, the worst track on the album. But it turned out to be the best-selling track for them, and I think it's in the top 100 tracks of all time. Is Don't You Want Me, Human League. This album is just, for me, it's very kind of forward-thinking. The vocals of Phil Oakey is you can't beat. If you hear it, he's got such a distinctive sound. Like, there's not one bad track on this album, not one bad track. But there is a track on this album, when I first bought this at 11 years old, that I would never listen to at night in my tape. I'd have it on tape. And I was forward this track, the track Darkness. Yeah, because it always scared the living hell out of me, that track. It's such a dark track. This is the Dare album, but also the original album that I had. And this is the original picture disc. I had to show this off because this has just been... I didn't realise I had this. The original picture disc of Human League Dare. But yeah, my one for this list at the moment is Human League Dare.
Amazing. So we are going to jump up to 2020 now with the band Loathe and the album I Let It In and It Took Everything. So Loathe are a metal band from Liverpool. They've done some big things in a pretty short amount of time. Like, you can tell they're one of those like super young, super hungry bands. They wanna really get out there and they really want to like spread their music. This is their second album from 2020. This, to me, a lot of people will probably agree. This to me is to the band Deftones, who are one of my favourite bands of all time. This is to Loathe what White Pony was to Deftones in terms of like that was the album that kind of like really push them into the stratosphere. Dying to see what they do next because, this potentially, they could still have their White Pony still to come. But this one is like, as with a lot of other bands that I've already mentioned on this list, like this does feel like them at their best. The thing that really got me into them initially was that when I first heard about them in like sort of 2017, I think, just after they'd released their debut, I heard that there's this metal band that are using like the Fender Bass 6, which was like it's essentially a long scale 6-string guitar but tuned down to a bass register. And I remember like years before I'd heard about like Robert Smith using it in The Cure. And I thought, like, how is a metal band, like, you know, it's a bass guitar. Like, I get that it's tuned right, but, like, that can't sound good. Like, there's no way they can process that in the correct way. But actually, you know what? Like, it sounds killer. There's something about the way they use it. Like, it's not the same thing that you could get from using, like, an 8-string guitar or a 7-string guitar, in my opinion. You could play it the same, definitely, but it wouldn't sound the same. It's kind of like ebb and flow on this album. So, like, this, as with their debut album, they start off with just a synth track. And it's just an introduction, very kind of like Vangelis, a little bit kind of Twin Peaks kind of vibe as well. You can tell they've sort of listened to Laura Palmer's theme and kind of gone like, yeah, let's delve into that kind of feel. And then it snaps straight away, goes into the song Aggressive Evolution, which, like, you can't have a more fitting title in my opinion. Like, that is everything that the band should sound like, turned up to 11. I believe that was the second single from this album, and that track is unreal. Super, super heavy intros and verses, and then you get to the chorus, and it's just this, like, soaring, beautiful, clean vocals, loads of synth layers, loads of guitar layers. Amazing. Broken Vision Rhythm, track 3, goes straight into the heaviness, and it's just heavy. I would potentially say too heavy in some ways, but it kind of fits with that ebb and flow of the album, especially when it leads into Two-Way Mirror, which was another single from this album. And I think that was a song that that was where a lot of people jumped onto this band. Very, very Deftones kind of vibe on that track. I get that some people probably don't like this band because of how similar it does sound to Deftones, with that kind of shoegaze kind of metal vibe, but they did their own thing with it, in my opinion. Like, yeah, you can definitely tell what songs they'd heard, but it's still a Loathe track at the end of the day. And it's nice coming from their debut to then see them doing songs that are just clean. There's no screaming, there's no, like, harshness to it. It is just, like, a clean rock/metal song. And then after that, you go on to songs like Is It Really You, which is even more mellow. And that's probably the stand-up track for this album, in my opinion. And then you go through to the end, you've got the title track, I Let It In, and It Took Everything. That feels like a real, like, release of emotion. Really, really sludgy guitar intro. Like, I think they tune it down, like, they take what's already an E in a bass register, tune that down to a C. So it's just like, blum, blum, blum. But it still sounds good. George Lever is the producer for this album, and he's done some really, really excellent work with a lot of bands in this kind of scene as well, like Sleep Token as well he's done work with. And I'd say alongside Adam Getgood with the Periphery stuff, he's probably on a par in terms of, like, producers in the metal scene for modern metal. And he really makes this album shine. And for a lot of albums that are modern metal, the master for vinyl usually sucks ass. This one doesn't. This sounds amazing. And you can tell, again, that they've actually put some thought into it, versus a lot of bands that just kind of go, well, we're going to release a vinyl because that's what people do now. And they don't actually do a proper master, and so it's too bassy, and it's just like, you know, you've got the needle jumping all over the place. No, this one's a winner.
It's funny you should say that about the... I find it a lot lately is... Obviously, it's a running record label, we've been, like, doing vinyl for years, is you always have to get test pressings done. The whole idea of getting test pressings is you want to see what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So if your needle's jumping around, there's something not quite right. And I have got some records, especially over the last couple of years, where it's too much bass. You know, I'm sure you have to do a particular master for vinyl compared to digital. There's too much bass, that needle will be jumping all over the place. But I am finding a lot more lately, people just making records and get pressed on vinyl without actually testing them out.
Yeah.
And that is happening a lot more.
Definitely pick this one up, because it's another one of those ones, like I said previously, it's another one of those ones where even if you don't like the music, there's something to find to appreciate in terms of, like, how they've composed, what they've done in terms of layering and stuff like that. Really, really good one.